Mhm.
Yeah, so let's start with you since you're the owner of this
Oh.
place, since you're the man behind the mission right here. Let's go, Mark.
Well, you want a little background?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Okay, there's a lot to cover here. I'll keep it short though. Well, I actually grew up here on Oahu, um, pretty much born and raised. I mean, I did live on the Big Island for a few years, but grew up in Waimanalo, Kailua side, and yeah, I went to Kailua Elementary, Kailua Intermediate, Kailua High School, and I did graduate from Kaiser my last year. I switched high schools. Long story, but I did it for sports. So I was into wrestling, and that team was good, and I was average at best, but they had a good team. So I figured it was, a nice little changeover senior year. Why not? But anyway, yeah, and then got into the military really young. Went to college for a little bit, then went into the military, and I did almost 15 years in the military. And
Thank you for your service.
oh, thank you. Long story, there's a long story behind that one. It was good. I was in the Coast Guard. I was Air Force and then Coast Guard, see like a pattern here. Like to try different things out, right? So, um, and got into a little bit of trouble when I was in the Coast Guard, uh, messing around with some anabolics. So I was competing at the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I was actually competing at the time, and I was gonna be doing the USA's, the was it 2007 USA's, and I had been prepping for it, and I had done a little like a small order, and I guess I thought it was coming from Texas because that's where the guy was sending it from originally. And then I guess he had a guy in Canada. I didn't know about it, and he sent it from Canada. And it was like the funny thing about it was, now I can laugh at it now. It was a small package. It was literally like a couple bottles of Test and some Tren or something. It was just for this contest, and I already had gear, but I needed a little bit more. And so it was kind of interesting how it was such a small thing, but that's how I got in trouble. So it was a whole, the it's funny because if you get a package sent from overseas, they don't need a search warrant, so they can actually open it. So like the postal service can just go in there and just open it.
Now
If
you
it's
guys
not,
know.
yeah, if it's not in interconus, right? I mean, Hawaii isn't considered interconus, but it is. It's part of the United States, right? So they would have to get a warrant. Not that they can't get a warrant. It's not very hard for police officers to get that, you know. But if your package is delayed like a week or two, then you might want to think about, not trying to teach guys how to do it, but hey, that's the way you do it. If you see it's delayed, there might be something going on. So yeah, so they were able to open this package, and then of course they saw what was in there. And at the time, and I'm pretty sure they still have it. There's police at the airport, so there might be like an officer in charge there who's kind of in charge of all these things that come in, and then they kind of look at it, and I think they decide what they want to go after. You know what I mean? It's not like every single thing that they get, they're going to go after every single person. I don't think so. That doesn't work like that. So they decided I was a pretty good target because I was active duty. It looked good for him, for the cop that was getting me. Like, yeah, we got this military guy, active duty, bodybuilder. And I think he thought that I was like some kind of drug dealer, like some kind of steroid dealer, which was actually really funny. I was
That's
like,
a small package to be
I know.
drug
Well, the
dealing.
guy was completely clueless. He had no idea about anything about steroids. He didn't know anything. So it was kind of funny. I was like, you have no idea what you're even talking about, dude. But he really, initially, he did think, oh, maybe I was a dealer. I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm in the Coast Guard. I don't even really associate with people. Like I was working, I wasn't really in the local gyms. Like I was kind of on base a lot. So I thought that was funny. But so that's kind of what happened. That was a whole thing that went down, and it kind of changed, my, I guess, the course of my life, I guess. Because then after that happened, had to go to court, all these things. Of course, lost my job, career. Um, but then kind of got through it, and then a few years later, I decided to start Iron Hawaiian.
Mm.
And so once because I kind of made up my mind. I just felt like, well, at this point, um, why am I going to do some random job, or why am I going to work for someone else? I said I'm just going to somehow make this happen. Somehow do something that I love, that I enjoy, and just make it happen. Regardless. And hey, even if in my mind I was like, even if I'm just getting by, paying my rent or whatever, like I don't care. At least I'll be doing something that I like, that I enjoy, and then I don't have a direct boss, telling me what I can and cannot do. So I just kind of like that idea, and that's what I did. I just went for it. And I think it made it easier too, as far as because I knew I was gonna have these charges and convicted felon, because believe it or not, you get caught with steroids, it's a felony. So yeah, so you go with a bottle. It's different now though. They did change a lot of things. A lot of people are doing TRT, so it's not like a thing anymore. Back in 2006, 2007, they were really going after people still. But now it's kind of changed. So yeah, so then that's what happened. I started this gym from bare bones, really didn't have much, and kind of just built it to what it is now. Started around 2011. And I was lucky because I had a friend that helped me out, that helped me kind of get a space. And it was, that to me, that was good. Like I mean, you wanna do it on your own. I think I wanted to do it on my own, but then also it's hard to do it on your own. There's always somebody there, right?
Mhm.
There's maybe a friend or somebody there that's kinda willing to help you. You still have to do the work. I still have to put in the work and do everything, but he was willing to help me, and that was a huge help to get me started, having that space. Because here in Hawaii, I mean, and this all happened here back in Hawaii, because I was gone, like I said, I was gone for a while. When I came back home, I got stationed back here, and I was here for almost a year, and then all this stuff happened.
So what got you
So
into bodybuilding? Was it out of high school, before Air Force Coast Guard thing, or how did
yeah,
that
yeah,
happen?
it was really young. I mean, I was probably like, honestly, I think I was like 8th grade,
Okay.
7th, 8th grade. Yeah, there was a teacher, and he was actually, I think he was the special ed teacher, and his classroom was like on the end of the building. They they kind of put him away from everybody else, but he had like a little weight set in there. And me and my friends, we kind of walk around, and I remember seeing it, and then I kind of played around with it. He would let us mess around with it. I remember just kind of messing around, doing curls, whatever. I didn't know much. And then 8th grade summer, wait, summer to high school. So summer before ninth grade, I was gonna go play football. And so me and my cousin and my other friend, we were like, we gotta lift weights, that was the thing. Gotta lift weights. So we bought one of those like cement sets, the vinyl
Yeah.
coated
Yeah, I remember those. Was
big
that the
25
Joe
pound
Weider one?
plates. Yeah, I think it was Joe Weider probably, and it had, like, the bar was, like,
Skinny one.
cheesy bar, and
Yeah.
we got that, we got a bench, and then it was kinda like a whole, like, starter kit
Yeah.
because it came with, like, a chart with, like, workouts, like barbell curls, shoulder presses, bench press, like, it's just all these different things, and so we didn't know what we were doing. Because honestly, what's funny is it wasn't like we had any adults there showing us, because none of them worked out.
Yeah.
This was like the early this like 82, Like a lot of the adults, honestly, like their parents, they weren't working out. So
Mhm.
they didn't know. So we just looked at the chart, and then I started reading. I started getting into reading, and just kind of like finding magazines, reading books to try and learn how to train. And that was the big thing, was we would just follow this chart, and then we lifted for summertime. We went into high school. And then of course when you're in high school, there's an actual gym. So we would train with the team, and then that's kind of when I started to see like, oh, look at this. This is the whole setup. Started to learn how to do squats and all the other big stuff. And then I joined the real gym probably when I was like 16. It's called the Brett's Gym. So it was on the east side. So I joined that, and that was when I really kind of got into it, because then now I'm around a bunch of people who like really love lifting. It wasn't
Mhm.
for sports. A lot of these guys were power lifters, bodybuilders. So And then from there, yeah, I got the bug. I mean, I was like hooked. I think I was really honestly by the time I was like 16, 17, I was really hooked. Like I really wanted
So at
to train
16, 17, who was your inspiration?
as far as pro bodybuilders and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I it's funny. I thought Tom Platz was amazing. He's very imbalanced, right? Crazy legs. I love the legs though. Like I had a thing about the legs. I was like, man, that's super cool. And I remember training my legs really hard. Because I always felt like that was such a demanding thing to train over everything else. So I put a lot of effort into it, you know. And then it's funny because my legs actually at a younger age, my legs were actually overdeveloped from upper body. Like it took me a few years to get my upper body to balance out. But I like Platts. Um, I thought, I mean, Haney was good, you know, like back then, Lee Haney. Samir Bannout was another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Was like he was like I liked his physique, just the look of it. His back was crazy. There was some other guys, Rich Gaspari. I thought Rich Gaspari was super cool because he was very, again, not the best body, but the guy just came in shredded. I was just like, it was very impressive for that time. And then even Sean Ray, really young, one of the younger pros at the time. And I was like, man, this guy looks good. Like amazing structure, amazing shape. You know, he just looked very pleasing up on stage. So like all those guys, I thought those guys were
So
like
as
really
far
good.
as your own personal physique and your training and all of that, did you take a little bit of everything that you liked from all of these individuals and kind of was like made your own?
Yeah, I mean, those guys were kind of the earlier guys. And I kind of looked at what they were doing and I was just trying to like feel it out and figure out what to really do. But the guy that really inspired me or really was like, oh, I want to do this program and fall Dorian Yates. Like
Okay.
Dorian Yates was like for me, because he came out in like 92, I think 90, 91, 92. So that was the guy I was like, whoa, like this guy is crazy development hardness, just so like again, probably wasn't the most appeasing physique on stage, but I was just crazy amazed on how big and how lean he got. And so I kind of follow that because the Mike Menser, a lot of guys might not know, but Mike Menser, he does this heavy duty style training. And that's kind of where Dorian got it from. And then I really like that style of training because basically your workouts aren't very long. It's very high intensity workouts and they're not long. You're not in the gym for 2 hours. And I used to do that. I used to train. I used to think because I had Arnold's encyclopedia. I thought, oh, 2 hour workouts, and I would. And I remember just not. I don't know. Like I wasn't growing a lot. I looked pretty good, but I just wasn't getting bigger. I probably wasn't eating enough too because I was in the gym for a long time, and then I was missing meals and stuff. You know what I mean? And so after when I started to switch over and I started to train kind of less, I guess, like 4 days a week, an hour each time, and just really push it that's when I noticed, like, I could see I was getting better results doing that, and so I just kinda stuck with that, instead of the standard, high sets, like 30 sets for a body part and 2.5 hour workouts and stuff. It works for some guys, but me, I did try that, and I just felt tired doing it. It just kinda was like it was just kind of a lot for me, so I decided to go the other route, and I actually liked it a lot.
So through all of the training, tell me about your experience through your gear exposure. How did that come about?
That was in the '80s. So, growing up here, um, it was interesting, like, I think initially, I didn't know much about it, right? I had heard about steroids, but I didn't know a whole lot about it, and then one of my friends was like, "Hey, there's the farm place, so you could go to the feed store, you
In
know?"
Waimanalo?
Oh, well, there's a or in Kaneohe. In Kaneohe. It might still be there, actually, no, probably there, it's not the same name, but anyway, so you could go there, and they would sell bottles of tests. Now, it's so funny, so my friend's like, "Hey," because they use them for
Horses.
cockfighting, though,
Okay, yeah,
and
that too.
maybe dogs, whatever, and I was like, "Oh," again, I didn't know much about it. So my friend, we go down there, he gets a bottle, it was like $25 for, like, the bottle, like a 10 cc bottle of tests. I get like 2 bottles. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with this thing because for one, you know, again, it was a shot and I'm like, here I am, I'm probably like 17, you know, and I'm just like, what do I do with this? And I think I was always a pretty cautious kid. Like I wouldn't just do stuff just to do it. Like I need to kind of know what I'm doing. And so um I had that bottle, like, I remember I had it for months, and I never used it, didn't know how to get syringes anyway, didn't
From
know how
that
to
same feed store.
from the same and then I decided I was just I think somebody else that I knew was looking for some. I think maybe it was one of the older guys at the gym, and I was like, "Hey, I got a bottle, you wanna buy it?" And I think I made some money off of it, you know, I sold it for, like, 50 bucks or something, I don't know. And I was like, "Okay, cool," because I was like, "What am I gonna do with this thing? I don't know what to do with it." And so I ended up selling it, and then I think the first thing I ever took, it was orals. It
Which
was
one?
D-ball. So it was the blue. See, the stuff I took was the original stuff.
Was it the blue hearts or just blue
It was
tabs?
the blue
The
tabs.
blue hearts are the
It
shit.
was
If you
Siba.
ever find those.
Siba, I think was the brand, Siba. But it was blue. And then I took Nilevar, which was Anavar, but it was Nilevar. It was like a European version of it.
Okay.
Again, I knew little because there was, and I still have this book. Oh, I should bring it up. Um, it was a little handbook that I had bought, and this was back in like 1987,
Is it the
88.
anabolic Bible and it has that
No, no, no,
spiral?
no. This is before that.
Oh,
This is
okay.
before that. It's small. It's like a brown pamphlet, literally. And I think well, I bought it from was it Heavy Metal Barbell back in the day in the 80s?
When it was on Wildlife Avenue, Heavy Metal Barbell, when
Wait, what
Harlan
about the one
and
on
whatever,
Kapahulu?
oh,
It
yeah,
was on
okay, yeah.
Kapahulu. Yeah, it was it Heavy Metal Bar? I think it was Heavy Metal
Who owned
Bar.
it then?
It was on Kapahulu. This is like 87, dude. Um, I forget who owned it. I know that um Paula Suzuki, the
Yes,
bodybuilder, she
bodybuilder,
but
powerlifter.
yeah, she was there, and I think it was her boyfriend was there. I think he might have owned it. But there was a book they would sell, and they were the only place that I even could find this stuff. There was a book, like an anabolic steroid book, and I still actually have this book.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
I'll bring it out next time. It's I just kept it all these years, but it had very basic information on steroids. Very simple. It was like about I don't know 40 pages maybe, but it was good. It was enough. It was enough for somebody who knew nothing to at least get some information. And it had all the stuff, you know, it had all the ones that you wanted, you know, it had all the basic ones in there. So I got that book and I was like reading this book and I read it like 100 times. I memorized the whole thing, you know. So I knew everything about every single compound. I knew it. And then that's kind of how I was like, okay, I'm gonna start. I remember starting with orals at first, just because again, I didn't know how to get syringes, and I was probably scared too. I think I was just like, I don't want to inject myself. You know what I mean? I didn't know what that entailed. I had no experience with that. So, but then, so I did that for a little while. Then the first time I ever injected myself, I was pretty young. I mean, I didn't inject myself. I had my friend do it. One of my friends, I'm like, hey man, can you do this for me? And I think I was probably like 19, something like that. I was pretty young. Wouldn't advise, you know, young guys to do this, but hey, whatever. I was doing it. So, and it was like equipoise actually. So
Okay.
funny.
Yeah.
Well, because again, I know you know, no better you use test first. That was as a base, but they had equipoise, and this is the one that had the horse on it,
Yep.
and it was 50 milligrams per cc. So that's like really low dose, right? You know what I mean? Nowadays you can get like 300 mg per
300.
cc, but these were 50s. But this was the big 50 mil bottle. And so all these things that they were all vet drugs, right? They're all vet anabolics because that's what you could get here. All the feed stores would bring it in, right? So, and I got this from one of my other buddies. So, and a lot of guys that I was getting it from, I hung out with a lot of powerlifters because I actually powerlifted for a few years before I got into bodybuilding.
Hmm.
Because the gym I was at, that's what they were doing. So I just said, "Oh, let me try it." And then a couple years of doing it, I kind of realized, not really my thing. I did well though, but I was like, that's not really my thing. I'd rather do the bodybuilding. I think bodybuilding is just more appealing to me. And so that's kind of what happened. But I knew a lot of the guys and they were able to get a lot of gear, right? So
Naturally.
I just that was my connection really was powerlifters at first, not really bodybuilders that were getting it from me. I didn't really because back then bodybuilders were funny. It was very cliquish, and it's not like how it is now. I mean, now people can just go on the internet and order it. But back then you had to know somebody, and a lot of it was bodybuilders. And if you weren't kind of in that clique, or they felt like you weren't at a certain level, they wouldn't talk to you about it. They wouldn't give you advice, they wouldn't help you. You just had to kind of figure it out. And that's kind of what they did. And then when you got better and when you started to look good, or you're then you could kind of be part of that group now. Like, oh, okay. Because they feel like, oh, this guy is good. So that's kind of how it was. But I had the powerlifting guys, so I was good until I got better. So
Well, the powerlifting gave you a good base to start with,
oh yeah,
right?
no, it
So
did.
good foundation, you
And
know.
and the powerlifters back then, honestly, the powerlifters took way more gear than the bodybuilders did, to be honest. Powerlifters were loading up, boy, let me tell you. They were taking some gear. They were taking some good gear. They were strong. Those were some strong guys. In the 80s here in Hawaii, there was a lot of strong guys.
Powerlifting was a lot larger in the
It
80s than
was it was
bodybuilding,
big.
if I
It
could
was big
recall.
in the 80s. Yeah, over here in Hawaii. Oh, and some strong guys, like crazy strong
Because
guys.
I remember going to a couple of meets all over the place, whether it
Yeah.
be Gold's Gym or what was it, International before.
Yeah, there
Um,
was.
you know, couple of YMCA's, or they would have them at their local high schools and stuff like it. It
Mhm.
used to be
It was
huge
big. They
before.
would have meets all over, yeah,
Yeah.
and it'd be filled, like, people would go and strong guys, yeah, I mean, it was fun,
So how old were you when you did your first show?
19.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you said you had 30 shows of more or less under your
about
belt.
there, yeah.
Wow.
Total, yeah, a lot of shows, but yeah, so, I mean, when I was a teenager, I think I only did 3. I did 3 shows as a teenager. I waited till I was 19 because I always wanted to do teen shows, but I always felt like I wasn't ready. So like when I was like 17, 18, when I hit 19, I was like, oh, I gotta compete because this is it. After I hit 20, I can't do these shows. And I wanted to do some teen shows. So I did the oh man, Mr. Aloha State.
Okay, I remember those. Yeah.
I was novice though, and I came in third. I beat one guy, which was cool. There was like 4 of us on stage, but I beat one guy. Hey, I was happy. I was like, that guy was a grown
You
man.
didn't come
I
dead
was
last.
19.
Yeah.
No, I beat one guy. So, so I did that, and then I did it was the teen Hawaiian Classic,
Mm-hmm.
the teen division.
And that used to be at the Blazel Center concert halls, right?
This one was at the Ilikai Hotel.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day. And I came third in that one. I beat a couple guys in that one too. And then I did a AAU one. I forget what it was called. Oh, it was like Mr. Teenage Hawaii AAU or something like that. And I got third in that one. And that was interesting. I mean, I beat a bunch of people in that actually. I mean, to get third place. There was, I don't know, it was about 10 guys in there or something like that. So it was kind of like we all just were in one class.
So where you started from in comparison to where you are now, would you change anything?
Oh, you mean
If
in
you
my
could do it all
life?
over again, would you change anything?
Probably. I mean, why wouldn't I, right? I mean, if I know. No, I my life's good, like where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, with the knowledge that I have, there's
Mm.
there's things that I would probably change, a few things that I would change to probably enhance my life now, make it better now. But then, again, it's like you learn from the mistakes, right? So doing all those mistakes or doing what I did, I learned from it and then got better,
Well, that's why now you
improved.
have a lot of competitors, and they could learn from your experience, or
Mhm.
you could help guide them into a um, healthier, safer path.
Yeah, yeah. And I learned a lot just from reading and just kind of like doing it on my own, right? So,
A lot of people don't take the time to even do that.
no, well, especially nowadays, because I think there's just all this information that's like one that's on the internet, and two, everybody's got information out, right? Every single
But they're
person
too lazy to
has
go get it.
information. Yeah. Yeah. So, and everybody has their opinion, right? Of wherever they're getting it from, whatever information that they're getting, they're coming back and saying, "Oh yeah, this is what you do, and this is what works." And you got the other guy over here saying another thing. So it's like, okay, who's right, who's wrong? Who knows? Um, I know what works, but hey, everybody's different. So
Everybody is different, and it's kind of more anecdotal or your own personal experience with what works or
Mhm.
does not work.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean that you could use it with the next guy.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I've always been very big open-minded about bodybuilding as far as yeah, everybody's different. The body is constantly changing. You're getting older. Every year it changes. There's different variables
more
in your life.
information comes out. Yep.
Yep. And people's lifestyles are different, stress, different things, job changes, career, there's all these things that can change the outcome for your next prep. So you have to take that into consideration, right?
I mean, but considering everything that had happened to you from the past, had you not got busted with that
Yeah. Right.
box of steroids, we wouldn't have this right now.
Probably
So,
not. I
you
mean, to
know,
be honest, it's probably a 99% chance that we wouldn't have this.
that
The
was
reason why
supposed to
I
happen.
say that, yeah, the reason why I say 99% is because I would have done a 4-year tour here, and I think I would have still had 3 more years left actually before I hit 20. And I would have definitely probably stayed in another 5 years. I mean, like, I know that. I was already because I was getting promoted. I was fine. I was doing great. I probably would have stayed in at least another 5. Who knows? Maybe another 10. I don't know. I was doing good. So I did probably wouldn't have come back here. I would have left Hawaii for my next unit, and I would have probably just stayed in the mainland and just worked. Not to say I would always come back and visit and stuff, but obviously, as everyone knows, I mean, Hawaii is expensive. It's expensive. It's hard to buy property here. So of course, at the time I had a family, I would have just probably stayed where I was at and made that work, right?
Keep it
You know?
comfortable and
Exactly. Well,
safe.
yeah, exactly. If I'm there, I'm in a place already, I'm doing pretty good. Like it's hard to just get up and go, right?